Our episode today begins with the crowned Prince of Tyre, named Ross, standing on the palace balcony and talking to himself. Unable to believe that the pathetic wizards of Koskol could defeat them so disgracefully, he decides to reorganize the troops once again and take command himself this time. Suddenly, a magic circle appears in the sky, and we see Tanasha within that magic circle. Ross becomes very angry, draws his sword, and asks her what she is doing here. The girl Tress tells him to calm down and not to speak in such a manner, urging him to show some respect for Tinasha. Tinasha asks Tress to be quiet and asks Bamira to take trees and leave. Tinasha then speaks with Ross, telling him that everything will end within 2 weeks and that she wants him to refrain from advancing on Koskol until then. Ross becomes very angry and asks her why he should do this, demanding that she come down if she is so brave, and calls her a weak witch. Tinasha tells him that this lowly behavior is what has caused them all this trouble. Ross replies that it is the wizards who are corrupting the world of Ereturdia with their power. Tinasha asks him if he has ever raised his sword against a baby's head or burned a mother holding her crying child. Ross asks her what she is talking about. Tinasha tells him that his nation has allowed this, and as the heir to the throne, he has studied history and how other nations were ruled. 300 years have passed since the Dark Age, and no other racist nation like theirs has survived. What they are doing is akin to destroying themselves from within. She then tells him that she has warned him and that he should think about it a lot. Then she leaves. The scene then shifts to the castle of Koskol, where we see Tanasha sitting next to Reincarnation as he informs everyone about the alliance of the 4 great nations and displays a map in front of them, saying that this is the new map of the continent. One of the guards asks him if it is possible for Tanasha to create an enchantment that covers the entire continent. Reincarnation reassures him, telling him that they have Tinasha who will handle it, regardless of the complexity or scale of the enchantment. She can create it piece by piece with sufficient magical power. She is an excellent and quick learner, far surpassing him. He then looks at Tinasha and tells her that he feels like he is in a dream. The scene then shifts to Tinasha and Reincarnation walking in the palace. Tinasha asks him if he knows why all the wizards on the continent are women. She explains that men's bodies are not stable enough magically, and they face many difficulties in enduring for long periods. For example, His Majesty feels the psychological effects, and because of this, the structure of the enchantment will cover the entire continent if she uses her magic. If that happens, the continent will change drastically. While they are talking, we see a man eavesdropping on them from a distance. The scene then shifts to Oscar, asking the guards why they haven't advanced into battle. He has been in Tyre for 6 days. The guard asks him if this is due to the crushing defeat they suffered on the plains of Astra. Suddenly, another guard enters and informs Oscar that sudden disappearances have also occurred in Versus. Oscar realizes that all the cities of the 4 great nations have been attacked. He then asks them if they think Tanasha is responsible for all this. One of the guards responds that it would be very concerning if she was not responsible for all this. Then Cecilia knocks on the door and asks for permission to enter. Everyone leaves and Cecilia enters. Oscar asks her what she wants from him. She approaches him and asks if the witch who accompanied him to Versus was the sorceress of the celestial blue moon. Oscar tells her no. It could have been someone who looked like her. Cecilia then informs him that she has seen her again, visiting her brother every night. Oscar is taken aback. And now, the time for her arrival tonight is almost here. Oscar rises from his seat, very angry, and says to Cecilia, "Lead me now to Prince Ross' room," referring to her brother. The scene then shifts to Prince Ross, as Cecilia and Oscar arrive at his location. Prince Ross is surprised and says to her, "What brings you here?" Oscar intervenes, saying, "I did, because I want to kill that evil witch." Prince Ross tells him to calm down and asks what he is talking about. However, Oscar attacks him, saying, "I know everything. Pretending to be ignorant will only lead you to a worse position." At that moment, Tinasha appears again, looking shocked to see Oscar, as if she had seen a ghost. Oscar points his hand at her and commands her to come to him now. But her 2 assistants grab her by the arms and tell her they must withdraw immediately. The time portal activates, and they disappear from the place. The scene shifts to the next morning. Prince Oscar speaks to his companions, expressing that they wasted a lot of time because of Prince Ross. However, he is curious to know the meaning of the historical deadline she set. At that moment, Lucrezia appears and tells them she has inspected all the cities. Oscar asks her, well, what did you find? She informs him that the girl is indeed diligent. It seemed like everyone had disappeared, but she had only placed a defensive barrier so no one could notice them. Even all the people in the city did not notice this and are now completely safe. As everyone talks among themselves, a person appears from the sky and greets them. He introduces himself as a great wizard from the city of Coscal named Bardalos. Everyone becomes angry and wants to fight him, but he raises his hand and says, "Calm down. I do not seek a fight. I thought you would want to witness our great king extending his control over the continent. I am honored to guide you all there." Everyone becomes even angrier and asks him what guarantees they have that he will take them safely. At that moment, Prince Oscar speaks up and says, "Agreed. Take me there." Everyone is surprised by Oscar's words. The wizard complies immediately with their request, and they disappear. They are transported to another place, which appears to be a well-planned trap. At that moment, Lanaak, the handsome young man with white hair whom Tinasha loves and whom Oscar despises, appears. Lanaak welcomes them and tells them that he has brought them to this place because he has an important proposal. He mentions that the continent is currently filled with harsh racism and intense conflict. Lanaak then sits on his chair and tells them that they need to put an end to this. He states that those who do not abide by the rules, wherever they may be, will face severe punishment immediately, and that he himself will gain the necessary power to enforce this. Oscar, enraged, exclaims, "What are you trying to do, man? Are you trying to become a god or to do what Pharaoh did before? Can't you see his fate? He is nothing but a lifeless corpse now." Lanaak responds, "No, my friend. And now let me show you something that will surprise you greatly and that you will also love. It is a surprise for you and will also be my bride. I will marry her and consummate the marriage tonight." At that moment, Tanasha appears wearing a wedding dress. She is shocked to see Lanaak and asks him why they are there. He tells her that he asked Bardalos to bring them here because he wanted everyone to witness the moment so that the process could be completed. Tinasha sits down and Lanaak begins performing some rituals, causing great disturbances in the place. As a large beam of light heads toward the sky, Oscar is taken aback and says, "I need a gap now." Lanaak continues his incantation, and strange events begin to unfold. It seems he intends to change the climate of the entire continent. If he could reconnect it again through his spell formula, he would use the third spell, Denial, and ask this spell to place itself in the back, allowing him to monitor the entire continent from there. After that, he would use the fourth spell, Longing, and ask it to place itself in the twilight, enabling him to control the weather as he wished. Then, he would use the final spell, Hatred, and ask it to place itself at midnight. Next, it was Tanasha's turn. She used a spell to counter Lank's spell, shocking Lank in the process. He asked her what she was doing, but she didn't answer him. Instead, she directed her words to Oscar, telling him that she had been searching for him all this time. When she found him, she was so happy she almost cried with joy. Then she told Lank that, as the one who summoned the magical lakes, he was the only one who knew their specific names. Finally, she would be able to free the souls of the citizens he had killed 400 years ago, who had melted into his magical lakes and were trapped there. Lank remained in his position, stunned because she had betrayed him again and tried to strike her with his spells. But she defended against his attacks. She wanted to torment him so he would atone for his sins. Lank screamed at his soldiers and ordered them to hinder her movements, not caring at all if she lost her limbs. Tinasha told him that she had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Lank decided to strike her with his magic, but her guards managed to block his attack. Tinasha then asked her friends Pamira and Reinhard to escape from there, but they refused. They would never leave her alone in such a predicament, especially since she was the only one capable of reworking such a formidable spell and evaporating the magical lakes. Protecting her was their duty. Then, Lank's assistant attempted to use his power to strike Tinasha, but Oscar intercepted these attacks, successfully defending her. He told her he was ready to sacrifice himself for her, so she asked him to help her for just 10 minutes. Lank's assistant spoke to Oscar, saying he had heard a lot about him, the swordsman who wields Acacia, but he couldn't believe he was as powerful as the legends say. The two then clashed with each other. Lank ordered his assistants to summon the demons, and indeed they were summoned, causing everyone to engage in combat. Meanwhile, a child tried to attack Ross, blaming him for his sister's death, but a guard held the child back before he could do anything. Ross ran away from him, while everyone else continued to fight each other. Reinhardt told Pamira that there were covenants engraved, woven from a soundless voice. He then used a spell to protect Tinasha. Tinasha continued to speak, saying that the flow of time is irreversible and the Seat carry shapes consciousness. She was now summoning the souls of Tuldar, who had been killed before. Everyone thought they were a myth, but they were real. Controlling several high-level demons was an impossible task, and the end of this matter was very near. Then, we switched to Oscar and Lank's assistant. Oscar told him he would end this matter immediately, but Lank's assistant mocked him and then used a fire spell to strike him. However, Oscar was able to deflect these attacks. Tinasha spoke, saying that despite the day beginning, it remains fixed and unchanging. She then uses her magic to summon the 12 spirits of Tuldar before her, and they indeed appear. The beautiful girl says it has been a long time since we last appeared. She commands them to obliterate the enemies, but to spare those without the will to fight if possible. The spirits then attack, slaying the monsters and enemies before disappearing once their task is complete. Afterwards, Oscar approaches Lanaak and says, "We meet again. If you want to know anything, ask Tinasha. She knows everything. That's why I pity her. If I were weaker, none of this would have happened. It's her fault that Tuldar was destroyed." Oscar retorts, "I trusted you until the end. How did you feel when you cut her belly?" Lanaak replies, "I felt nothing because she is nothing more than a tool." Enraged, Oscar raises his sword, attacks, and kills Lanaak. Then a soldier speaks to Oscar, saying, "You know what you must do as the bearer of Acacia." Oscar does not respond and goes to Tinasha, asking her, "Do you remember what I told you when you nullified Lucrezia's spell?" During their conversation, Tinasha suddenly collapses. After a while, she wakes up and Oscar tells her, "I didn't expect you to sleep for an entire week." Tinasha responds that she didn't expect to be alive. Oscar informs her, in the end, Prince Ross decided not to use force against Koskal and left it as an independent state for the wizards. Your lecture must have influenced him. She replies, "A lot has happened in the past and the present." Oscar then says to her, "I remember, you are officially my fiancée now. It was the only way to bring you back alive in that situation. Some wanted you dead, but many wanted to exploit your powers. Now that things have come to this, work hard in the remaining half." Tanasha laughs and is very happy, thanking him, saying, "As you wish, my contract holder." This concludes today's episode. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates.